a shortage of petrol, a shortage of fuel. So basically when you ask the German public, they would say every day this war ends, every day that makes this war shorter is a good day, basically. So we hope, and very, very strongly, that we'll come to a quick end of this war. I'm not overly confident because you see what Iran does. They want to, involve many, many other countries in the region into this war. We see all the Gulf countries now somehow concerned and having an impact. The war having an impact on them. So I think we are in a very, very difficult situation, and I can only hope that this situation will end very quickly.
I want to also bring focus to the recent visit of Chancellor Merz in India. Very important, very significant, very interesting. Also the FTA that has happened between India and Europe, how does that bring about a paradigm shift in India-Germany relations?
So Chancellor Merz came early in his tenure. You know that we have had a change of government last year, and he decided to make his first trip outside the Western world, as it were, to India. And that's a clear commitment to the Indo-German relations. And I think the gesture by the Prime Minister to welcome him in Ahmedabad, in his hometown, in the town where he began his political career, was very, very well received from the German end, by the German end. So basically, what we saw was a very, very friendly, warm meeting between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. They had a long day in Ahmedabad with a lot of events on the side next to the substantive talks. They went to see the Kite Festival. They went to see the Gandhi Ashram. So I think it left a deep impression in when the Chancellor on him when he left after a short visit to Bangalore also. So I think in Chancellor Merz's mind, India is one of the strategically most important countries outside Europe, and I would say that we'll see much more of this relationship in the coming month. Let me tell you that this is an important year for our bilateral relations. It's the 75th year of our diplomatic relations. We celebrated year through, and the Chancellor's visit was the beginning in January. And by the end of this year, we have the great honor to receive the Prime Minister and parts of his cabinet for the intergovernmental consultations, an institution, a format that India and Germany agreed upon about 15, 16 years ago. And every other year there is a meeting of the two cabinets, and this time it will be in November or December, dates have not been set yet, in Berlin. So that is a wonderful umbrella under which we will celebrate these 75 years. I can tell you with all conviction, Indo-German relations are at an all-time high. They have never been better, and still there is a lot of potential.
So is that an indication that the Indian head of government is visiting Germany? Okay, that
is the plan. It's not a secret, because 2 years ago, in 24, the German Chancellor and the cabinet came to Delhi, and every other year then the location changes, and this year it's Berlin, and it will be by the end of the year. Dates will be set in the near future.
And that would be fantastic, and of course a new era in India-German relations, and of course the next 75 is what we are hoping and wanting to celebrate and reach those transformational milestones as well. I do want to delve deep into the EU-India trade deal that has happened. Do you think India has become irreplaceable in the new world order and a pivot in global south, where Europe and other parts of the world, other countries of the world, are looking towards India, and an association, a partnership, a trade deal with India is something that is inevitable in today's times?
Yeah, I think it is highly commendable, I would say, that we did it, and it's in a way logical also, because this is a huge market. This country is enormous. You have an annual growth between 6 and 8%. Middle class growth. There will be a new market for many, many products from Europe in the coming months and years. And therefore, I think investing in this relationship, also trade and economic relationship, is extremely important. I'm very proud of this free trade agreement, because it's a tailor-made free trade agreement for India and Europe. It's a free trade agreement which was negotiated in a relatively short time. And I think it covers all the important areas, and very important, it also leaves out the areas where we are not compatible. For example, agriculture. I think it's very limited, the agriculture chapter. And that is wise. It's, I think, intelligent to do it like this. And I think that if this FTA goes through European Parliament by the end of this year, and that's the intention, I think we can be very proud of a very quickly and extremely sound, quickly negotiated and extremely sound FTA that will lead to more prosperity on both sides of the partners, so in Europe as well as in India. So I'm very happy about it.
There were a lot of restrictions that have been laid out by the US administration when it comes to students, professionals, skilled labor, traveling to America and building a life over there. But that seems to be an opportunity that has been grabbed by both hands, with both hands by Germany and other countries as well. What are the prospects of it?
Look, I'll be very honest with you, Megha. We have now 60,000 Indian students in Germany. And most of them are really doing a great, great job. Our universities are very, very happy to take Indian students on. They are ambitious, they are hardworking, they are dedicated, they are committed. It is a pleasure to work with them. And the deal we offer to these Indians is you get an almost free education, higher education, but we also offer you to stay in Germany after that and work, at least for a couple of years. In your specialization. And that works well. And therefore, I think we'll see an Indian diaspora grow. We'll see more Indians in Germany. We work with the government on the center level, but also on the states level, to have fair and legal migration into Germany in the areas where we need skilled labor. And you know what is the most fascinating part of it is that the 3 lakh something Indians we have in Germany now, average-wise earn 20% more than the average German does. And that shows how successful, once again, I would say an Indian diaspora is. So count on us. We are very eager to get Indian skilled labor in the areas where we need it. We are very, very open for Indian students. But I also have to say here, many students walk in a trap when they get agencies that are not really good enough and do not choose the right places. So my clear advice to all, I see a lot of young people sitting in the audience, is look out for a good agency, don't trust your agent, and make your own choice. It is sometimes that's way better than listening to only one source of information.
What are the other aspects of the India-Germany relationship? Trade relationship. I would particularly want you to focus on the defense deals, you know, the submarine deals. What's happening on that end?
So submarines for us is a huge thing. No? It's I think for both our countries, if they go through, and it looks like this will be the case in the not so far future, I think we'll be bound much closer, to an Indian company, MDL, and a German company, TKMS, joining hands to build submarines for the Indian Navy. We are very happy that that seems to be the case now. I think it will improve the capacities and capabilities of the Indian Navy big time, and I think that that shows that Germany has started a new relationship in the defense sector with India. It's not only submarines, it's all sorts of technology that India is looking at in Germany, and I would say it should also go the other way around. India has a very, very interesting defense production, also privately driven defense production that also is interesting for the German armed forces. So I think we'll see in the next years a closer relationship between the German defense sector and the Indian defense sector, and that's to our mutual benefit once again.
Also, there are so many German companies that have set up their plants over here. Are there more of these startups, more of these foundations, more of these organizations that are likely to open up, diversify, and build supply chains in India, and vice versa?
Yeah, I think what we see is a clear pattern. We have over 2,000 companies having set up shop in India right now. That's by far the biggest from any European country. And the number is growing. And through the FTA, the interest in India has become palpably bigger. So you see already now that medium-sized small companies are thinking of India through the FTA lens. So that's a good sign, you know. But I want also to stress that Indian companies more and more invest in Europe. So we have 750 Indian companies, good companies, powerful, globally very strong and performing companies, having set up shop in Germany. And we are welcoming that big time. So we are very happy that we have such a good Indian presence in Germany. And this is how we see the relationship. It's always a two-way relationship. It's not one imbalanced trade volume. We have, and that's rare, a relatively balanced trade volume. Now we have about $50 billion trade volume per annum, per year, and it's 50-50, you know. And that's a very healthy relationship, and I'm very proud of that. I'm happy about that.
Where does China fit into this entire picture? Obviously, there at this point of time have been a difficult association that countries have had when it comes to you know, fear of building supply chains, and then also the problems of expansionism that we are seeing in the Indo-Pacific. And does this also help in other countries, including Germany, including the continent of Europe, looking at India as an alternative? Or are these two aspects run parallelly and have no bearing on each other?
So China, of course, is for us hugely important, and German business private sector is very much invested in China, and that will not change in the near future. But what we feel is that there is an appetite within the private sector to diversify, you know, to de-risk, let's put it that way, or not putting all eggs in one basket only. And there India comes to mind, of course. You know, this will be a market which will be much more interesting in the future. This is a market that for us is through the FTA now very, very closely linked to Europe. So I think India will be a very, very interesting alternative in the years to come for German business. Having said that, China will still be high on our agenda for the foreseeable future, with all the, you know, upsides and downsides that brings. You know, we see the danger, but we see also the opportunities.
I want to come back to the heavily tariffed oil. Up until recently, there were tariffs that have very recently been lifted by the United States of America on India in purchasing the Russian oil, and the war continues, and there's a second one that has again started up in Iran. Do you think tariffing countries is the right way to go?
No. Answer is no, I don't think so. I think that, you know, Europeans, we are free traders. We think that the more you open your markets, I mean, in a regulated way, obviously I talked about agriculture before, the better it is for both sides. I think that, I mean, you know, my government, the whole European Union thinks that tariffing is not the way forward. It is not a good tool. So we have to try to reduce tariffs and non-tariffs impediments. So basically, so that we open up the markets in a way that is mutually beneficial for both sides. That means that you can't open up everything completely. That would be unfair and would not be right for both sides. But there is, and this free trade agreement shows it, there is ample opportunity to improve your trade and business relationships by opening up for free trade. And therefore, I think Europe has made a very, very clear stance saying that we want free trade agreement with India. And I find it extremely noteworthy that only 10 days after the FTA was concluded, the Americans also came with a trade agreement, not a free trade agreement, but a trade agreement. I found that very noteworthy.
But do you think then the US administration led by President Donald Trump was in the wrong in acting in a manner that it did to come out with blanket tariffs to the tune of 40%, 50%, 60%?
So we have also agreed, we have an agreement with the US. The Europeans have an agreement with the US that imposes 15% of tariffs on European goods. We were not very happy about it, but now that's the way it is. I cannot comment on politics of other countries, but what I can state time and again is that in our view, tariffs are not the right way to move forward. The abolition of tariffs is the better way to move forward.
And finally, before I let you go, Ambassador, what does the future hold for India-Germany ties? You said there is a high likelihood that the Prime Minister visits Berlin later in the year. What are the new avenues? What are the challenges that both leaders are going to look to overcome?
So we spoke about business and defense, we spoke about the free trade agreement, we spoke about the academic exchanges, about people to people, we spoke. But there is so much more we do, and you would be surprised to see how granular our relation has become. I just want to flag that, you know, Germany and India bilaterally work very well together. When it comes to climate change and the fighting of climate change, the adaptation, mitigation. We have this unique partnership for green and sustainable development with India, which I'm very proud of, which is a wonderful partnership, full of ideas, full of creativity. And we have what I find very, very remarkable, a very sound academic cooperation. You'd be surprised how many partnerships between Indian and German universities there are, how many Indian researchers work in Germany in research institutions, what great you know, performance they show and how they contribute to the research results. And I would say that you know, we are growing closer on every level, and not only the government to government, but also the people to people's level. And that's, you know, where a relationship really grows, not only between the capitals, but also on a grassroots level. So I'm very happy about that.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining me on this platform, NXT Forum, and I look forward to many more of these conversations.
Thank you, Megha. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency Ackermann, for joining us, and of course, talking about the next in India-Germany ties. Let's move on now to our next segment, where we are focusing on next in defense. And joining us for the next panel is a very special, of course, set of individuals. We have with us Pankaj Chadha, Executive VP and Head Marine Platforms, Equipment and Systems, L&T. We also have with us Mr. M.V. Reddy, Joint MD, Astra Microwave Products Limited. Also joining us for the next panel is Smit Shah, President, Drone Federation of India, and Stephen M. Mora, Emeritus Adjunct Professor of Public Policy, UC Berkeley. Thank you all for joining us. Let's have a round of applause for them, please. And this session will be moderated by Senior News Editor Devika Chopra. So Devika, let's quickly hand the floor over to you, and you can take forward this conversation on next in defense.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Uday. And along with space, defense is a particular interest of mine as well. So I'm very, very happy and glad that you could all join us today to take this conversation forward, because we have a very good mix today, I'd like to say, of panelists. We have industry leaders, industry experts, and we also have an academic expert as well. So a lot of diverse perspective is expected out of this conversation. And defense is a sector that really needs constant conversation, especially given the current geopolitical climate of the world, where there's, you fall asleep and the next day you wake up and someone's declared war, right? So it seems, unfortunately, that there are more and more wars today. And what does that truly mean for humanity? What does that mean for the industry? What does that mean for government? And what does that mean for overall policy? And we'll try to touch upon all these aspects. So I'd like to begin by focusing on, as I mentioned, the geopolitical landscape. And my first question is to Professor Stephen Mora. So given your background in public policy and homeland security, we've now seen in the past few years, Europe really struggling with its reliance on external alliances as far as defense is concerned. There's now a reawakening, one can say,